Hey everyone, how you doing today? Hope you're doing great. Uh, Back online today to talk about Medicare. Give it just a minute here for a few more people to join, but we are, man, it's it's Medicare time. I mean, today is December 4th. We've got 4 days left of annual enrollment period, so it's getting serious here. Just making sure I got everything set up as we get started. I see some people joining. As you're joining, if you comment where you are coming from, then I'll include, hopefully include some things relevant to you in my comments as we go. So go ahead and comment as we go here. Tell me where you're calling from and what your name is, etc. And I will try and customize some of what I share today based on where you're coming from. So today being right near the end of annual enrollment period, where we are, 4 days away from the end of AEP, industry, we call it AEP, which most people call it open enrollment. It's not open enrollment. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I realize that because, it should be called open enrollment, you would think, because it's when you have the opportunity to make changes to your plan. But the government has decided that open enrollment is something else. Open enrollment is when you first start with Medicare. That's open enrollment. And this is annual election period, or AEP, and it ends on December 7th. So almost everyone who with Medicare needs to do something, review something, take action of some kind before December 7th. It doesn't mean that you have to change your plan, because sometimes the plan you have is good and you're fine, but almost everyone has to do something. So if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, then you need to review, because your plan is it's 1-year contract at a time. Your plan, whether it's United Healthcare, Aetna, Humana, Scan Health, whoever it is, whoever provides you with your Medicare Advantage plan, they make their bids to the government, to CMS, and they set their plans for 1 year at a time. And once their plan is approved, their plan can't change for 1 year, but it could change the next year. So if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, you have to stay up on what's changing every year, and that's one of the downsides of Medicare Advantage. Now, if you have a Medicare supplement plan, a lot of people think, oh, I don't need to do anything. I've got my supplement. It stays the same all the time. Well, that might be true of your Medicare supplement plan, but your prescription drug plan changes every year, because your prescription drug plan follows the same pattern as a Medicare Advantage plan. So that's one of the downsides of a Medicare supplement, is that your prescription drug plan is not a package deal with your health insurance. You have to review that every year and make sure that you have a good plan for the upcoming year. And so since this is such an important discussion, Medicare Advantage versus Medicare supplement, I do a lot of videos on this where I talk about some of the differences and some of the things that surprise people. For example, people are surprised when they find out that they thought all this time that with a Medicare supplement, there are no networks. And then they realize, oh, there are networks for Medicare supplements. They're just hidden networks that you don't know about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should watch my latest video that just came out yesterday, talking about the hidden networks in Medicare supplements, because even Medicare supplements have networks. They're called ACOs, Accountable Care Organizations. These are networks of doctors where, unbeknownst to you, they are keeping you within their network, and they're getting paid money, hard cash dollars, millions, billions of dollars of incentive going to doctors to keep you in their invisible networks. So, you've got to watch that video if you don't know what I'm talking about. But because there's such a grand debate about Medicare Advantage versus Medicare supplement, today, being the end of AEP, I want to spend some time on this and make sure that you are comfortable with what you have chosen, and that you are comfortable going, through the next year with the choices that you've made. Now, something about me that's very different from everyone else that on social media, on YouTube, etc., is that, number one, I have over 15 years of experience helping people with their Medicare, and my companies, which this is PlanFit, our national virtual team that helps people all over the country. But with all of my companies in health insurance, we've helped over 60,000 people to make good decisions about their health coverage. And so not only am I experienced with all this experience and having helped so many people to make good decisions, I'm unbiased. And so I'm going to tell you the good and the bad. And that's uncommon here on YouTube. There are so many people here on YouTube that are trying to push Medicare supplements. And you know what? I think Medicare supplements are incredible. But you know what? For the right person, I think the Medicare Advantage is also incredible. And when I say that, I know I get a lot of comments. It stirs up a little controversy because people get really worked up. Health coverage, it's one of those things that I tell people this all the time. When you find something that works for you and you're very happy and you've figured out what's best for you, you don't have to go around telling everybody else that they've made a mistake because they didn't do what you did. Everyone has different needs. And so right now, over half of the people with Medicare have chosen, 53% actually, approximately, have chosen to go with Medicare Advantage, where with the Medicare supplement, you have somewhere around approximately 20% that have chosen the route of a supplement. And then the rest have something like Medicaid. Maybe they're retired from the military, retired from the government. They have other coverage. Retired military. They have TRICARE for life. So they have Medicare with TRICARE for life. Honestly, they really shouldn't mess that up. They should stay with that. They shouldn't join a Medicare Advantage plan or something else. They should stay with their TRICARE for life and Medicare. And so anyway, I'm setting it up and giving you some context for what we're going to talk about today, and sharing with you that what I'm going to share with you in everything that I give you is going to be unbiased, and I'm going to point out the good and the bad, because I have helped people who needed to move from a Medicare Advantage plan to a Medicare supplement because they needed more coverage. I've helped people who've moved from a Medicare supplement to a Medicare Advantage plan because they needed to have more affordable options, right? It was getting too expensive for them, or they had something really good in their area. I could tell you a quick story. When I was one of the first, couple of years I was working in Medicare, I used to go to people's homes. I would sit at the kitchen table and help them to make a decision about their Medicare insurance at the kitchen table. And it's incredible to see what's happened over the last 15 years. And doing right by people, by the way, always is the right answer and has really helped our company to grow. But I was sitting with someone and he was in a really difficult situation. The man needed a heart transplant. This was in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's the only person I've ever known who successfully had a heart transplant. And without going into a lot of details for you, I want to share with you that I was able to find a way for this person to get onto the right insurance, even needing a heart transplant and following all of the rules, so that he was able to go to UCLA Medical Center in Southern California and have his heart transplant. And you know how much he paid for it? Nothing. He paid nothing for a heart transplant. He's the only person I've ever met in my life who had a heart transplant, who was successful. He is still our client to this day. It's been a dozen years later. He lives here in Las Vegas. He's incredible. It's an incredible story. So I have seen, my point of this is that I have seen that there are times for each type of insurance. And there are people that they all fit for. So find what's best for you, and that's good. Be passionate about it, but you don't need to tell everybody else that they're making a mistake because they've made a different choice than you. And sometimes that happens with Medicare supplement, Medicare Advantage plans. Okay, let me start by sharing my screen here. And you'll see that we put the number on the screen for PlanFit. My team is here available. We make sure that we don't schedule any appointments during the time when I'm live on social media and YouTube, so that if you need help with something, you can call us and we are here to help you. Everyone on my team is trained by me. No one here is paid commissions. Everyone here will tell you the truth. So a little bit about us. Okay, let's talk about this. Medicare Advantage supplement versus Medicare supplement versus Medicare Advantage in a cost comparison. Now, we can't compare directly dollars for dollars because Medicare Advantage is different everywhere and Medicare supplements are different everywhere. The benefits might be the same, but the costs are different. So with Medicare supplements, you typically have a higher cost. I put the $200 monthly average. I'm talking about someone who's turning 65, around the age of 65 to 68, let's say. But if you're 75 to 78, you know that you're probably going to be paying more than that, because in most states, the cost of your Medicare supplement is based on how old you are. And in the states where it's not based on how old you are, it's very expensive. So like New York, your average is going to be more like $400 if you live in New York, because they can't change the price. It has to be the same for everyone. They can't change it based on age. But the way it works in most places is that it's lower when you join and it costs more when you over time. So the monthly cost is high, but it has a low out-of-pocket cost. The low out-of-pocket cost, it can be as low as $283 for your Part B deductible. That's talking about the Plan G, which is the most popular Medicare supplement because it has the most coverage. Now, I go to great lengths to educate people about the Plan G high deductible, which almost no one has told you about because it doesn't pay big commissions to insurance agents. And by the way, while I'm on the subject of commissions, I just have to say there is so much misconception about this and just flat out lies. People believe that Medicare Advantage has grown and that you see all the advertisements on TV because Medicare Advantage pays insurance agents higher commissions. And it's not true. In almost every case, Medicare supplements pay the highest commissions. And so that's also why I think you see so many people telling you that Medicare Advantage good, Medicare supplement good, Medicare Advantage bad. And it's just not that way, right? So with the supplement plan G, you only pay a $283 deductible. But if these costs are high for you, but you still want the freedom of a supplement, someone should tell you about the plan G high deductible, which if you need to learn more about that, I also have a great video on that. Search the channel for that. Medicare Advantage usually has a low monthly cost. In most cases, a $0 monthly premium. There are Medicare Advantage plans that have a premium. Remember, in order to have either of these plans, you have to have Medicare Part B. So you have to have A and B to get a supplement or an Advantage plan. So I'm not adding that in here. Just know that that's the ticket to the game. Whatever you have to pay for Medicare Part B, you have to have that. And this is on top of that. And a lot of people say, I can't pay more than that. I'm living on a fixed income in retirement. My Social Security is $1,200 a month. And I've got to eat. I've got to be able to get groceries for me and my spouse. And we want to have a pet. We've got to have pet food. How can we, we're not going to live without our pet. And I have to get my prescriptions filled. And I've got to keep the lights on. And the only reason that I can watch Calvin on YouTube is because I've got to have the internet, right? So for people in that situation, a Medicare Advantage plan is an incredible alternative on the monthly cost, but it can have a higher maximum out of pocket. The average right now is somewhere in there, $5,000 maximum worst case scenario, but it depends on where you live. In some of the areas we serve, we have maximums that are as low as $750 for the entire year. That's your maximum for health. Drugs have a maximum of $2,100, but that can be your maximum for health. In other areas, like if you live in a rural area like Wyoming or North Dakota or something like that, Medicare Advantage is not a good option for most of those people. In many cases, it has a monthly premium and it can have a maximum out of pocket much higher than this, even $9,000. And so where you live is really important. And that should be a good part of your decision. There'll be more things that we talk about in the comparison here about how you make the decision between these two. But this is the first picture of just talking money. Do you want to pay money up front, monthly, regardless of whether you use it or not? You're paying for it, thousands of dollars a year, or would you rather have a low monthly but pay when you go and see the doctor? Medicare supplement. Let me say one more thing before I go on my next slide. Medicare supplement is something that most people have never seen before they retire. Until you retire, you've never seen anything like it because there is no other health insurance like it. Because all other health insurance works more like Medicare Advantage. The whole time you were working, you had health insurance through your employer. If you didn't get it through your employer, maybe you had Affordable Care Act coverage, Obamacare coverage, where you had purchased that on exchange. Everything that you got through your employer, with the exception of maybe an HSA, everything that you got through Obamacare or through ACA, through healthcare.gov, all of that was like Medicare Advantage. So Medicare Advantage is insurance from an insurance company. It has a monthly premium or sometimes a zero monthly premium. It has a network of doctors, either a PPO, preferred provider organization, where you can go anywhere in the network without referrals, or it's an HMO, health maintenance organization, where you need to go to your primary care doctor and then go to a specialist. I mean, all this is very familiar. You had this the entire time you were working. And so when you retire, if you want to have that same kind of coverage that works the same way, that's Medicare Advantage. But Medicare Supplement is something new and different entirely. With a Medicare Supplement plan, you're paying more monthly, but when you go to the doctor, if you have a Plan G outside of that $283 Part B deductible, you don't pay anything else for the doctor. So it's like fixing your costs up front instead of having copays when you go to the doctor. Okay, so that's cost. Let's move on to something else here. Medicare Supplement plan median cost for a 65-year-old male. By the way, unlike Obamacare, ACA, Affordable Care Act, healthcare.gov, whatever you want to call it, unlike the ACA, I'm just going to call it the ACA. That's what I'm comfortable calling it. Medicare supplements, they can change their rates based on your age and based on your sex, male, female. So in this case, 65-year-old male in New York City, $366. We did this in advance to give you an idea of what costs are. In Los Angeles, $217. In Chicago, $207. Love my Chicago. I lived there for about 4 years in my early 20s, and so that's like my city. I live in Las Vegas now. This is Las Vegas behind me. And I've lived in Las Vegas since 1997, so I'm like practically a local here. Houston, Texas, $195. Phoenix, Arizona, $204. So this gives you an idea. By the way, in many of these states like Arizona and Texas and Illinois and California, if you're a female, you get a break. You pay lower rates. You're like, oh my goodness, why would a female? This is I'm not trying to be facetious here, but if you look at the average male and female, women usually go to the doctor a lot more than men do, especially during the childbearing years and throughout their 20s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They're going to the doctor quite more frequently, or I should say maybe 50s. But it kind of changes at some point because, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings here, and I'm going to knock on wood for a minute because I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody. But women outlive men. So if you get to 65 years old and you have a man and a woman 65 years old, there's a lot that can happen before 65. But you make it to 65, you're probably going to live into your 90s now, and especially if you're a female, because the average age that people live to, it is construed a little bit. It's changed because people die young, and that skews the average. So when they say the average person lives to be in their late 70s these days, well, it's different. If you live to 65, then your life expectancy goes up significantly, but it goes up more for female than male. Women tend to outlive men. It's a fact that we know. And so when you get to Medicare, men will have higher premiums in the states that are allowed to rate for male-female because men aren't going to live as long. And females will have slightly lower premiums because they're going to live longer. And so when you're 65 years old and you're female, you'll pay a lower rate than what I've shown here in the states that are allowed to do that. New York can't do that. New York can't rate for anything. Okay, so that gives you an idea. All right, let's talk about networks. This is the big thing that everyone talks about with Medicare Advantage plans, and it can be a frustration, and I understand that. But guess what? I want to tell you that your whole life you have had a health plan with a network, your entire life. There is no such thing as a Medicare supplement until you get Medicare. So unless you had Medicare through disability at a younger age than 65, you've always had a network. And so people who get really worked up about having networks on Medicare, hey, it's just not that big of a deal. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Don't be upset with people who are okay with it. Okay, Medicare supplements, no networks. Any doctor in the country that takes Medicare. That is so simple and so incredible and very powerful. So if you are willing to pay the monthly premium for that, that's the main thing that you're buying, is that you can go almost anywhere. Now, there is a trend that some clinics now are Medicare Advantage only. So if you live in a rural area, and if you live in the city, then you may find that there are some new up and coming clinics that are Medicare Advantage only. But that's the exception. The rule is that almost everybody who takes Medicare takes a supplement. And so if you want to be able to go to Houston, Texas, if you ever have cancer, and say, I want to go to the top doctors in the world, at least in the United States, for my condition, Medicare supplement lets you do that. That is very powerful. You can go to the Huntsman Cancer Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. You could go to the UCLA Medical Center. You can go anywhere. You go to the Mayo Clinic. Anywhere that takes Medicare will take your supplement. So that is very powerful. With a Medicare Advantage plan, you have a network. And it is similar to, like I said, when you were working or when you had Affordable Care Act coverage. And the network is either an HMO or a PPO. An HMO I had shared with you already a little bit about this, but an HMO means that you have to stay in the network. You go to your primary care doctor and they refer you to your specialist. By the way, isn't that what you do anyway? I mean, even if you have a Medicare supplement plan, you find a doctor that you trust, and then you go to that doctor and say, "Hey," and the doctor says, "Hey, you really need to see an endocrinologist. You're pre-diabetic or whatever, and you ask them, "Who should I see?" And they tell you who you should see. That's really why I think that you should watch my video about networks of ACOs, accountable care organizations, because what you don't realize is that your doctor is actually incentivized, financially paid to, even when you have a supplement, to refer you to his friends or her friends. So I really watched that video. But in theory, you can go to any doctor that you want, and you certainly can. But you may be held in a network that you don't even realize that you're being held in a network, an invisible hidden network. So that's simple. Medicare Advantage, though, with an HMO, you only can go in network. So it is the most restrictive. It's the most cost effective and cost efficient in most areas, but it is the most restrictive. So if your doctor is not in that network, don't join that plan. And even when you join that plan, know that there is a possibility that your doctor could leave the network and that you no longer could have that doctor covered by your insurance. That is possible. And they can do it in the middle of the year. This is something that I have been fighting against for a while. And part of what I do outside of my videos for educating on Medicare and everything is I'm actually involved in some of the political side. And I go to Washington, D.C., and I meet with policymakers. And I've met with Senator Wyden's office and Senator Cortez Masto's office. And I've met with CMS and others and said, and made recommendations about things I think need to be improved. And one of them is that I don't think it's fair that your doctor can leave your plan in the middle of the year and you can't. And I'm very, very proud to say that there is a recommendation now coming from Medicare that hopefully will take effect in 2027 that is a direct response to some of the things that I and some of my peers have been doing to say that, and this is coming for 2027, hopefully. It hasn't been finalized yet, but it was just announced 2 weeks ago that they're coming out with something that says that if your doctor leaves the network, you should have the opportunity to leave your Advantage plan. Wow. You heard it here first. Now that hasn't been finalized, but that is in the final rule for Medicare for 2027. And we have been advocating for that for a long time for our clients. But currently, it doesn't work like that. Your doctor could leave the network and you are stuck there and just have to choose a new doctor or pay cash to see your doctor, which is a bad idea. There's also PPOs. PPOs have higher fees. They are more expensive because the insurance company doesn't have as much control over which doctors they're paying, et cetera. And you can also go out of network with a PPO. And then at the bottom, you see except in emergencies. An HMO allows you to go to any hospital in an emergency and use any ambulance in an emergency and go to any ER in an emergency. And in many cases, worldwide, where a Medicare supplement does not have worldwide coverage. Well, I say that some supplements do have coverage. Don't take that. That actually is not entirely factual. Some supplements do have some coverage overseas. Some Advantage plans don't have coverage overseas, but we have to look at what's specific to you. Okay, that's networks. Let's talk about drug coverage, because supplements are incredible. Medicare supplements are incredible insurance. On the health side, on the drug side, that's their weak part. It is the ugly part. A Medicare supplement has no drug coverage built into it, unless if you're watching and you're 85 years old, you might have a Plan J or something. There were plans back in the day that used to have drug coverage. They've almost all disappeared. And if you're on one of those plans, you need to move because they're getting so darn expensive. But you have to get a standalone prescription drug plan if you have a Medicare supplement plan. And a standalone prescription drug plan, on average, you're costing $38 a month. But there are a lot of really good standalone prescription drug plans now across the country that are as low as $0, depending on where you live. So you might have a $0 prescription drug plan, and that is brand new. That just started last year. In 2024 was the first year we saw ever in the history of Medicare, ever saw a zero premium prescription drug plan. But just because it's zero premium doesn't mean it works for you. We have to look at your prescriptions and run them and make sure that you have a good prescription drug plan. Medicare Advantage plans usually have drug coverage built in. Now, here's a word of warning. With Medicare Advantage plans, you will see commercials on television that will promise you a lot of stuff. Like, you can get money back in your Social Security. We'll pay for your Medicare Part B for you, et cetera, et cetera. In many cases, that particular plan only comes with a Medicare Advantage plan that does not have drug coverage. And here's the problem. When you have a Medicare Advantage plan, if it's an HMO or a PPO, you're not allowed to get outside drug coverage. It's illegal. And if you sign up for a drug plan, you will be removed from your Medicare Advantage plan. So you should make sure that your drug plan has drug coverage in it, unless you have drug coverage elsewhere. And that would be that would be like someone with VA coverage. If you're a veteran and you go to the VA to get your drugs, that works out great. You could get a Medicare Advantage plan with no drug coverage and get your drugs at the VA. And you could have some really nice bells and whistles on your Medicare Advantage plan because the insurance company has more money to play with. They don't have to cover your drugs. But usually you need to get your drug coverage through your Medicare Advantage plan. And anyone who doesn't have outside drug coverage, make sure you do that because you get penalized if you don't have drug coverage. The government penalizes you. I've explained this analogy many times, but it's like buying a car. Why does the government care that you have insurance on your car? Well, when you get a car, you are required by law to get insurance. And if you don't get insurance, then and you're and you get pulled over, you get fined. Well, Medicare's kind of like that. When you get Medicare, you have to get drug coverage. It is required. But the way that you get hurt afterwards is if you get drug coverage later, you get a penalty, and the penalty lasts for your entire life. So don't go without drug coverage. And the Medicare Advantage plan doesn't charge you more for drug coverage. So that's and I'll tell you one last thing about drug coverage. By and large, speaking on, nationwide, Medicare Advantage plans usually have stronger drug coverage with more options and more drugs in their formulary for a more affordable price than Medicare supplement standalone prescription drug plans have. So that is one of the downsides of a Medicare supplement, is that the drug coverage just doesn't match one-to-one the kind of drug coverage that you usually will get through a Medicare Advantage plan, speaking globally. Okay, let's talk about prior authorization because hold on. We have a comment here. I'm on a 0 prescriptions and happily took the 0 drug plan with a $600 deductible. Oh man, I love your handle. Your name at No Trash in Heaven. I love it. So No Trash in Heaven said, I'm on a 0 prescription drug plan and happily took the $0 drug plan with a $600 deductible. Perfect. If that works for you, the only thing I'd say is make sure you run your prescriptions. And if they're all covered under that plan, perfect. And the $600 deductible, it usually works out. I mean, your maximum out of pocket for 2026 is $2,100 anyway. And you're going to get to it one way or the other. So if you do it through the deductible and then you have co-pays, then that works. So glad you found something that works for you. Thanks for sharing. Okay, prior auth. And if there's no trash in heaven, some of us need help. Okay, Medicare supplement versus Advantage prior authorization. This is one of the ones that they harp on a lot. I would say around prior authorizations, there is a combination of truth and fear-mongering. So I'm going to try to strike the middle ground because the fear-mongering is out of control. But the truth needs to be said too. So Medicare supplements, no prior authorizations. There are no prior authorizations. Medicare supplement just mirrors what Medicare does. You don't have to worry about what your supplement thinks. It's what does Medicare think? If Medicare says yes, then your supplement pays. It's almost like this train running through. It goes through the station, Medicare, it goes through the Medicare claim, passes off, goes to your Medicare supplement. You don't have to send anything to them. They get the claim through Medicare. They pay their part. Done. Beautiful, right? But in 2026, there are 6 states, including, some from on the east and the west, Washington on one side, Massachusetts on the other. There are 6 states that are in a pilot program where Medicare is going to have prior authorization on some things, where Medicare could say, hey, before you do that skin graft, before you do that expensive scan of some kind, we are going to want your doctor's notes, and we want approval. And you know how they're going to do that? They're going to use insurance companies to do their approval for them. So by and large, no prior authorization on Medicare supplements. Medicare Advantage has prior authorizations, and the denial rate is 6.4%. So that means when you and they have a list of things. Every plan has their list, and you can. And I've made videos on this where you can see some of the lists. But for example, you want to do a CT scan. A CT scan is very costly. There is going to be a prior authorization. They want to know. They want to see the doctor's notes, and they want to see why. They want the doctor to justify why it's necessary. Now, anytime that you say, I need the doctor to justify something, you're going to get pushback and you're going to have issues. And so if the doctor doesn't submit the right information, it's going to be denied. And denials happen in Medicare Advantage 6.4% of the time. So that means, yes, 95% of the time it's being approved. Approximately 94% of the time it's being approved. It's actually 93.6% of the time it's being approved immediately. But 6.4% of the time it's being denied. Denials are not fun. Nobody likes to be told no to. And I would submit to you at 6% of the time, let me fast forward. But when you go back and say, and dispute that denial, 81% of the time, the dispute is successful. So that means that the true denials are much less than 1%. So if it's being denied less than 2% of the time, is it safe to say that maybe 2% of the time it should be denied? I mean, I don't want to say this is someone who had something that they had to fight for that they really needed, but I also know people who think that they're that they have cancer because they sneezed, and they want to have a full body scan, and that costs everybody. And so I don't know. I think some denials are a good thing. And also, in addition to that, there are some doctors that if you're on a Medicare supplement, your doctor only gets paid to run up the bill. If they don't see you, they don't get paid. On a Medicare Advantage plan, they get paid to improve your health. And in some cases, they get paid just because you are their patient. There are some problems to that too, because maybe they don't want to see you if they just get paid because you're their patient. And that's the smaller number of Medicare Advantage plans pay that way, but some do. And so anyway, I'm giving you some of the challenges on both sides. So what I'm saying about prior authorizations, and the thing that a lot of people argue with me about, is that it's not as big of a problem as they're telling you, but it can still be a problem, and it can be a frustration. And the other thing that people don't tell you is that usually the reason it gets denied is because the doctor doesn't submit the right information. And there's a lot happening in a doctor's office. I don't want to put too much weight on them and be too strong in what I say about doctors, but there are some times that they just took the shortcut and didn't submit their notes, and that resulted in a denial. And then what the doctor can say is, oh, these insurance companies, you know how terrible they are, because we all nod and say, oh yeah, they're terrible. And sometimes they have been. But in this case, we're so conditioned to say, insurance company bad, doctors, God's gift to man. I don't think so. I don't think that way. I've seen good doctors. I've seen bad doctors. I hope I didn't offend anybody. I've seen good insurance plans and good insurance companies, and I've seen bad insurance companies. Makes sense, right? So that's my piece on prior authorization. Okay, extra benefits. Extra benefits has driven a lot of people towards Medicare Advantage. And I want to tell you something about Medicare Advantage and extra benefits that's really, really important to start this conversation. You should not choose a plan based on extra benefits. The reason you have health insurance is for your health. It is for, what if you have a heart attack and you need to go to the doctor, et cetera, right? It's for your health. Choose your plan based on your health. And if you have 3 or 4 options to choose from that equally take good care of your health, then choose the plan that has the best extra benefits, right? So there's all the advertisements on television are telling you about dental, vision, hearing, money back in Social Security, flex cards for groceries and over-the-counter items. I'm channeling my inner washed-up football star. So don't choose your plan based on that. Choose it based on what the health benefits are. And then, secondarily, decide if the extra benefits are good for you. Now, there are a lot of extra benefits in Medicare Advantage. Medicare supplements have no benefits and in some cases have minimal benefits. For example, there are some plans that have like a silver sneakers type of benefit that give you a gym membership. There are some Medicare supplement plans that have a gym membership included. And there are a few, they usually call them innovative plans. And usually you pay extra for them. But an innovative plan, like an innovative plan G, if you see the word innovative, that means that that usually means they've thrown in some extra benefits. And you usually pay a little extra for those. And so they might have a dental discount. A dental discount it's not insurance. It just means that your dentist, if they're part of this network, has accepted network rates, and they will charge you network rates. And maybe that's less expensive than their cash pay rate. Maybe, not always. So we know that about Medicare supplements. You don't choose a Medicare supplement because you want dental, vision, hearing, and other coverage. You actually have to get that on the side or pay for that on your own. With Medicare Advantage plans, though, there can be a lot of extra benefits, and they can be enticing. But again, don't choose your plan for extra benefits. But if you're selecting between plans and you have multiple plans that fit, then consider your extra benefits as the difference, as the difference maker. Dental, vision, hearing allowances, transportation benefits, flex cards, gym memberships, other things. These are very common. Some plans have all of those things. Some plans have none of those things. It really depends on how competitive the plans are in your area. So if you live in an area with a lot of seniors and good medical groups, think, Southern California, Texas, Arizona, Florida, Las Vegas, or any, decent sized city with retirement people. The people retire and they tend to move to the warmer climates. So a lot of the warmer climates have really strong Medicare Advantage plans. Then you'll find ones that have a lot of times all of these things. Okay, so here's my overview. Hold on, let me take a second here. We have another comment from Yogurt Boxer. I don't know, does a yogurt boxer like box up yogurt? Do you fight yogurt? I don't know how you do that, but that's another good handle. It says, I really appreciate your honesty about supplement versus advantage. There are pluses and minuses to everything. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Medicare supplement versus advantage overview. Okay, cost. If you weren't with me from the beginning, here's my summary. Supplements, high premium, lower out of pocket, no networks, no drug coverage, no prior authorization. With an asterisk, 6 states are going to have prior authorizations for some services on original Medicare next year on a pilot program. No extra benefits to very minimal extra benefits that usually you actually pay for. On the advantage side, low monthly premium, but higher out of pocket. Networks, yes. All Advantage plans that are HMOs and PPOs, which is the vast, vast, vast majority of Advantage plans, have networks. HMO has only in-network, except for an emergency. PPO has in and out-of-network, but the out-of-network sometimes is too expensive. I'm holding 2 thoughts I need to tell you about Advantage plans and the higher out-of-pocket and about PPOs. So I'm going to hold those. RX coverage, usually yes. There's usually coverage for prescription drug plans, for your prescriptions in your Medicare Advantage plan. Yes, you will have prior authorization and extra benefits. There are many. Okay, my thoughts I need to get back to. Higher out-of-pocket on Advantage plans. I say higher out-of-pocket, but there are some places where Advantage plans are so strong that your doctor is a zero copay, your specialist is a zero copay, going to the hospital is a zero copay, regardless of how many days that you're in there. Therapy can be a zero copay, and there are some areas, and it's not available to everyone. But if you're in the right areas, there are plans that have very, very low out of pockets. But we're talking about on the aggregate. On the aggregate, an Advantage plan usually is low monthly and pay as you use it, like your health insurance always was. And then networks. I wanted to share with you about PPOs. A lot of people think, you know what? I'm going to find a happy middle ground. I am going to take an Advantage plan with a PPO, and then I have access to go to doctors all over the country out of network, and I can go within network without restriction. By the way, PPOs still have prior authorization. So even if you're on a PPO, you still are subject to prior authorization in an Advantage plan. And the other thing I'd say is that I usually advise people to consider what's important to them. And if the access of a supplement is important to them, being able to go anywhere and everywhere, and they think they're going to get that in a PPO, I say no. The thing that you really are looking for, you need to pay for. Get the supplement. And then if what you're looking for is lower cost and more benefits, then go with the Advantage HMO. I'm not a big fan of the PPO in the middle, but in many cases it does work out for people and it can be a good thing, and it depends on your area. But in general, go to one end or the other to maximize. Either go with the supplement or go with the HMO Advantage plan. And what's happened in 2026 is that the vast majority of PPOs have lost a lot of their benefits and have really gone downhill. And PPOs have been kind of, in many cases, vanishing. That we had a big swell over the last 3 years where a bunch of new PPOs came out, and now they're all going away. So it's been a painful year, and over 2 million people are losing their their Medicare Advantage plan in January, and the vast majority of them are on PPOs. And I hope that they have all been listening, because there will be some people, there always are, there will be some people in January who get to January and then they realize that their plan left their area or went out of business, stopped offering coverage to them. And you know what happens to those people? They get put back on original Medicare with no drug coverage. But you know what we can do for those people? We can help them to choose a different Advantage plan or to get on a Medicare supplement plan. Because if you lose your plan, you have the guaranteed right to join a Medicare supplement plan. Every state in the country allows this. It's not, you know, based on where you live. Everywhere you can get a Medicare supplement plan if your Medicare Advantage plan dropped you and went out of business or moved out of your area. So that I hope that everyone makes that choice before they run out of time. Okay. That is my last slide. I'm going to answer questions now. So let's take a look. Oh, no trash in heaven said, LOL, washed up football star. Yep, I've seen him on my mother's TV. You know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to name names, but that, by the way, that commercial is no longer on TV, and the people behind it were fined massive millions of dollar fines. So there is some justice after all. You're absolutely right. From Carmen Anico. I don't know if that's if I'm getting that right. Says you're absolutely right. We should choose a health plan based on your health, not for petty care. Oh, I like that. Petty care. That's pretty good. Petty care. You know, people are like, how much over the counter? How much over the counter does this plan have? Is it my other plan had $500 that I could spend on Band-Aids? I'm like, okay, that's nice. And you probably can give all of your grandkids Band-Aids and, you know, walkers and whatever else you can get at the pharmacy and out of your over the counter for Christmas. But that's petty care. I like that. I'm gonna remember that. Petty care versus health care. And then one more comment from Yogurt Boxer. I saw here in Washington State, Multicare is not doing PPO starting next year. By the way, my handle is for my boxer dog named Yogurt. Oh, okay. Yogurt Boxer. I get it now. That's great. Thanks for telling me. Okay. Let's see. I think we've gotten through all the questions. Multicare PPO hospital, I think. Yes, thank you. We are seeing a lot of places where PPOs are disappearing. And a lot of them are and even in places where they're staying, there's been a big trend this year is that some insurance companies are removing them from quoting and enrollment platforms so that insurance agents won't enroll people because they don't want you on there. They can't afford you on there anymore. It's been a big fight this year. In fact, we've had almost, I think we're at 9 state departments of insurance have written memos and in some cases a cease and desist order against insurance companies for suppressing and trying to hide their insurance plans. And you ask, why is that happening? Don't insurance companies always want people to join their plan? No, sometimes they don't. There are some insurance plans they don't want you to join right now, and they're going to great lengths to keep you out of them because um, there's this. Okay, I'm going to try to do this in less than 2 minutes. Okay, explain to you what's happening in Medicare right now. But it started with the Inflation Reduction Act, which some people call the IRA, but the Inflation Reduction Act mandated that prescription drug plans have a maximum on Medicare of $2,000 in 2025 and it goes to $2,100 in 2026. And this was really fun for us as insurance agents to be able to tell those clients of ours who had really expensive medications and were spending $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year on their medications to tell them, hey, you're only going to have to pay $2,000 next year. I love being able to tell them that. It's not as fun for me to tell my clients who don't have expensive medications that your less expensive medications are going to cost more because the insurance company has to make up the cost. And with the Inflation Reduction Act and the $2,100 in 2026 $2,100 maximum out of pocket, the Inflation Reduction Act said something that sounds great to politicians, but is not reality. They said, we're going to make insurance companies pay for that. Well, listen, insurance companies are just aggregators. And this is going to be controversial for me to say this for some people, because insurance companies are boogeymen, and sometimes they brought it on themselves and have done some really stupid things. And there are issues. I'm not going to get into my thoughts about insurance today, but I have some really big thoughts about how insurance is a problem in our system in some cases, and in some cases is the solution. So, but without getting into all that, when a politician just says, well, insurance companies we're going to make insurance companies pay more. If every person was going to max out their drug plan and it used to cost them $4,000 or $5,000 and now it's going to cost $2,000, that's $3,000 a person that now has to be spent on people. Where's that money going to come from? Well, they're just going to have to get the money from other people, from other places. They're going to get rid of PPOs because they can't make money on them anymore. They're going to raise the cost on your generics so that you pay more. They're going to make you pay. You were saying earlier, no trash in heaven. You were saying you have a $600 deductible. Man, people wouldn't, 2-3 years ago, none of my clients had a drug deductible. They were like, that plan has a deductible? It was like a pariah. Like, I'm not touching that plan. It has a deductible. No one wanted a deductible. And now it's been normalized. You're going to have a deductible. You're going to pay a $600 deductible because the insurance company has to find a way to equal that out. Because the Inflation Reduction Act, okay, let me get to the point here. I promised you 2 minutes and I'm already going over. The Inflation Reduction Act reduced how much you spend, your maximum on prescription drug plans, but it did not provide any additional funding for that. So increased benefits. In fact, it decreased funding, but that was reversed now. So there is more funding for it, but not enough to meet. So long story short, some of these plans are in turmoil right now and trying to figure out how to have enough money to pay all the claims and not lose money. And no insurance company is going to stay in business losing money, whether it's not for profit or for profit. They can't stay in, they have to not lose money. And so that's why we're seeing such a big shakeup this year. We're hoping now, I think things are kind of, it's like a log jam. I've shared this before, but imagine, I visited Minneapolis this summer, and on the river there, they used to have big sawmills before they turned to flour mills. And they had pictures of a log jam when I was visiting the flour mills. They had pictures of what the river used to look like, and they have pictures of a log jam when there were mills there. And it's like everything trying to come through at once, and it's like constrained and stuck and piling up. That's what hit insurance companies the last few years. Mix that with more claims after COVID, with the cost of everything going up, and it created this logjam. And we're really feeling it this year. But I think it's starting to break loose, and hopefully 2026, 2027, things will normalize. The 2,000 max out of pocket on prescriptions will normalize, and will be more comfortable, and insurance plans won't be disappearing and pulling out of counties and things anymore. And that's what we expect to see. So, okay. Let me make sure I've answered all questions. Wow, guys, we did it. I've answered all your questions. We've gotten all the way to the end here. I really appreciate you joining today. Thank you for staying with me, so many of you, and for your comments. We are here to help you. The number is on the screen of my team. Call if you need help. Listen, there are a lot of people out there giving bad advice on Medicare, and you don't know that they're biased. Some of those people could even be people that you trust, like your doctor. Don't take advice from your mechanic about your health. Don't take advice from your doctor about your insurance. Find someone who specializes in that and will help you, and make sure that you're getting good advice. Oh, you know what? I got one last question. Let me answer this before we end. Like to fly. Man, I love to fly too. I have my private certificate. I learned to fly in my 20s. I flew a Piper Warrior. If any of you know how to fly, Piper Warrior is an underwing plane with that's a little 4-seater, if you can call it that. The back seat really only seats one, but I like to fly one. Said 01 said, I calculated that over 20 years, a supplement plan will cost almost twice as much as an Advantage plan, even if you meet your maximum out of pocket every 3 years. Unlikely for most. Is this true? Yes, absolutely true. And absolutely maybe not true. And the reason I say that is it depends on the Advantage plan in your area. So what you calculated is probably true for most people, and it's probably true where you live. I can tell you that it's more than true with in places like Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, it's probably way more expensive to have a supplement, because the Advantage plans here are so strong that you probably could hit your maximum out of pocket every year and still be paying more on a supplement. Well, you could actually. You could hit your maximum out of pocket in Las Vegas. You could, if you were on the plan with the lowest max out of pocket, Medicare Advantage plan, lowest max out of pocket, you could hit your maximum every year and still be paying, and it would still cost twice as much to have a Medicare supplement, because that's how low you're, 3 times as much a year. You're in Utah. Oh, that's awesome. I was born in Utah. I was born in Vernal, Utah. Okay, well, it still kind of depends. If you're in the Salt Lake area, though, or in one of the, in Wasatch Front, or one of the areas that has Select Health, United Healthcare, et cetera, one of those plans, then yes, what you're saying is absolutely true. And so financially, for the majority of people, financially, Medicare Advantage wins against the Plan G almost every time for the majority of people. And I say the majority because the majority live in metropolitan areas. So yes, I would say that's true. And then I would just add that for those who say, oh, you know what, then I just can't afford a supplement. Well, maybe you should look at the Plan G high deductible, and just consider that the money that you save every year on premium, when the year comes that you hit your deductible, you have saved a lot of money. So thank you for that. I like to fly. Yes, I would say that's true. Okay, everyone, thank you for joining today. I hope to see you again soon. Make sure that you have reviewed your plan, that you know what you're doing for next year. If you're watching this, then I know you have, because you're not the kind of person that just sits and let it ride. If you know someone that does sit and let it ride, shake them a little bit and say, hey, this isn't the year to do that. You need to make sure that your plan is good, whether it's your Medicare Advantage plan or your prescription drug plan. All right, thank you. And follow me on YouTube if you're not already. Like and subscribe, because I'm going to tell you the truth. That's what I do. All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.